All right, so guys, I'm going to be teaching you guys a Bendback minnow, and the original Bendback um, was developed for bonefish, or flat species, bonefish, permit, um, and they would typically right here, if they needed to, they would weight the fly, and then also they would overwrap that to protect the lead with chenille quite often because it was readily available and inexpensive. Um, but when you do that, uh, and I learned this from Lefty, it would make the fly snag on things. So he stopped doing that in the 80s, before I met him or knew him. Actually, before I was even fly fishing, I think. You know, I think I started in '89. Um, so he stopped doing anything on the hook shank here. Um, I'm going to show you lots of different options, and if we have time, I don't know what, these aren't very long flies for me to tie, but I'd like to do two or three versions for you guys because I want to show you some of the different things you can do. I'm going to pull up, ones that I have sitting here tying that I have for fishing. Um, this is just one that I like. It's a play on a Charlie Waterman's streamer. It's kind of a shad pattern as well, but it's white, yellow with a very pale blue over the top. I don't like a lot of flash in my flies most of the time, especially these, but that's one version. I also prefer to hand paint my eyes. Um, but you by all means can use the stick-on eyes. Anybody that's fished in the Northeast here knows this as either Tutti Frutti or electric chicken, funky chicken, but it's a striped bass color that is really excellent for redfish as well. And believe it or not, I will tie it smaller, and I have some smaller ones here in different colors, but crappie really like it as well. Um, here's one. It's called this version has two names depending upon who's tied it and where it's from. In the saltwater world, this is called flip pallets. Oh boy, the name's escaping me. It'll come back. In freshwater, it's called a baby smallmouth bass. Um, and I forget what Flip called it right now. Um, yeah, that's gone. I had it an hour ago, and I went through this myself. Here's another color, and notice, guys, these are all different sizes as well. This is a really popular color with red fishermen and then false albacore. And the and false albacore is a pelagic species. I know this. Why red with gold and a brown back works in hundreds of feet of water in crystal clear water? No idea, but it does. Um, here's one that I like around mangroves for snook and baby tarpon and stuff. You can barely see that there's a second color here. You notice the head is pink. My top wing is a very pale pink, very, very pale. And in that tannic backwater or tannic stained backwaters you get in Southwest Florida, down in Yucatan and Belize, um, pink shows up differently in that color water. Um, and I don't listen, I've tried the fluorescent pink like that hot pink. It's too bright. This kind of like a bonefish pink or a bubblegum pink works very well. And you can actually see the two-tone when you get into that tannic stained water. Um, don't knock an all white one. All white works exceptionally well as well. Um, and then this is the part I want you guys to know and think about as well. For the last 15 or 20 years of Lefty's life, he didn't fish regular clouser minnows anymore. He fished bendback clousers. So that's a clouser minnow tied as a bendback. Notice that the difference is you don't get that weird belly thing that would happen here on a normal clouser minnow. You get a much more natural shape to it, yet you still get your jigging action. Okay, that's just a blue over white. Here's another color that Bob and I talked about numerous times that he and I both love. It's chartreuse with a yellow back with gold flash in it. It is the loudest thing on this planet, but it's really nice at 60 feet. All of a sudden, when you can't see your fly, you know it's in a fish's mouth. Um, and here's the same fly. I just reversed the colors. I did the yellow with the green on the back. You can certainly do this for, if you're more tarpon, here's black and purple. And yes, these are all ones that I just took out of my box because I only fish Bendback Klausers. I don't fish regular ones anymore. This is a red and white one. For any of you guys that have seen the Arapaima that I caught, I have on my Instagram or Facebook page. I tied it on a different hook, obviously a stronger hook, but it was this long, except it was yellow with the red head. That's what I caught it on. I did not find the Arapaima very difficult to feed. And then this is the one I wanted to show you guys as well. There's no reason, hold on, let me measure it. Yeah. This one is 2¼ inches long. There's no reason why you can't do bonefish and hermit sized ones as well. This is a little pink one, white belly, pink top again. And because I put it on flats, I use the silver eyes instead of the red ones because I'm not looking for that red color here. So you can do Klausers, you can do unweighted bendbacks, you can weight your bendbacks with lead wire if you have to, if you don't want to do lead eyes. I do want to show you when I do weight them with the lead eyes. If you guys look, I fill in this area here with resin. This fly, I can throw it 3 feet into the mangroves, and I do on purpose almost every cast. And it comes out every time. I've got the weed guard here, which we'll go over. I've got the lead eyes with the wedge head. There's nothing on that thing to be caught in any of the mangroves. I fish the tidal Potomac as well for largemouth and snakeheads, and I can throw this right over milfoil, right over the hydrilla mats, right through stargrass. And when I get to that pocket finally, whether I use the weightless one or the weighted one, I can let it slowly sink, and I'll choose a very slow sinker most of the time because that tends to aggravate them more. But other flies that are tied on the same platform that have different names would be Bob Popovich's jiggy fly. All he did was use a tungsten cone head or a brass cone head, but he tied it on a bend back hook. If you look at Pop Flies, the book, he talks about bending it. He just wanted a fly that punched through the waves in the surf a little bit, so he added a little bit of weight to the nose. But you can use tungsten cones. You can use beads if you don't want the weight of a cone, or if the cone doesn't fit over the hook or something. You can use brass ones and throw lead behind them, or lead-free wire for those of you up in Canada. So I know after the crayfish one, I had a bunch of people reach out saying, hey, what do we do in Canada? We can't use lead. So, but what I want to show you guys is the most important part of this fly is bending the hook. And when Lefty taught me and Bob taught me this one, they both said the same thing. When you feel the metal start to bend, stop. Can you guys see how little I bent that hook? That's all the more the bend is. So many people grab this hook and do this. Give me a second. Always do this in with 2 pairs of pliers. Take one straight into the jaws, take your other one, move it about an 1/8 of an inch from the end of the jaws. Just rotate your hand. Now, I'm going to purposely bend this one too much. That's how most people tend to bend their bend back hooks. And if you look at most of the ones in catalogs, A-Rex has one now. Over time, Dairiki used to have one. All these companies used to do these. But I'm going to show you. They all had this shape to them. And they kind of would have this. And if you look, your gap is so minimal there. There's really almost, I'll pull it with the pliers so you guys can see better. You've removed like 2/3 of your gap. And you're hooking at the wrong angle. If you look at this one that I've bent, that's the angle. That's all the more I've done. It's about 5 degrees. I'm pulling, when I pull this way, I'm pulling in line with that hook point. When you go and bend it, I'll bend another one here too much. When you bend it too much, I want you to see the angle in which you're pulling. It's hard for me to remember to bend too much. But now you see when I'm pulling, I'm not pulling in line with the hook point anymore. I'm pulling across that hook point. So when I'm pulling, I'm actually going to start to bend this hook open this way. And that's the one problem I will tell you is when you start getting to tarpon much over like 40 pounds or so, you can't use a bend back hook anymore. In fact, you can't use any upturned hook. The top of the roof of the mouth on a tarpon is, once they get to that big, it's so bony, you can't get it to penetrate. And you will break your hooks. I worked with a bunch of guides down in Florida, and they like them all the way up in the backcountry, all the way up until like February, March, when the 40, 50, 60s and 100-pound fish start showing up. Then they won't use them anymore because they just break. And it doesn't matter what hook I've tried. It's the fact that the mouth is so hard up there. So I'm going to start with just a couple of basic ones here. I want to show you guys the proper way to bend that hook again. Smooth jaw pliers are important. You can see the hook eyes here. We're only going to tie on this first little bit, so that's all the more area we need to bend. You don't go any further than that. And if you look, I've given myself just a little bit of space, maybe one hook eye's worth of space. And I felt the hooks bend just a little bit. That's all the more bend I want. It's very minor. We don't need a lot of hook bend. I cannot stress that enough. Also, the most common hooks we use for this is, the Daiichi 2546 or the old Mustad 34007, which are stainless steel hooks. By all means, if that's what you like to use it. It's what I used for the first 15 years I tied this fly. Because before that, if I tried to bend any fly or any other hook, especially any of the more modern ones like the Gamakatsus, these tin-plated hooks, every time I would try to bend them, they would crack. Because I didn't know how to bend them. I worked with Joe at Gamakatsu USA to learn this, and he still won't say that it's an approved technique, because he goes, Alan, you're asking for the world to make a hook that's strong enough to land fish, but weak enough for you to bend it. He's like, it's oxymoronic. But by doing the two and creating the fulcrum, if I grab it right here and try to do it, it cracks every time. I need to give the metal just a little bit of space to flex. So again, just because I tie a lot of these when I'm bending another one. That's all the more bend we need. Just barely any at all. As soon as I feel that metal start to flex, I stop bending it. And if you guys don't know about Xuron pliers, that's what you should be using. I'm a big fan of two models. I like these really long ones just because they're thick and like heavy duty metal, but they aren't the most durable. I tend to bend them and chip them and dent them. They make these stainless steel ones that are, the pair that was on Dave Whitlock's desk was 35 years old, and they're now sitting in the American Museum of Fly Fishing, and Bob Clauser is still selling them. He has them now. If you reach out to Jackie and Bob, they'll sell them to you. So I typically use 210 denier poly thread. I'm a fan of Danville and Wapsi's UTC just because they're readily available and cheap, and they work well. The UTC lays very flat if you need it to, which I quite often do. And I will tie here on a 45 for you guys, so you guys can see a little bit better. We're on a 90 here. So we just start our thread, 5 or 6 turns, whatever it takes. And this is one of the things I do to all of mine that have a white belly. I take exactly one piece of pearlescent Flashaboo of the normal size. I don't know if I've done any other minnow flies with you guys, but I always cut my flash on an angle. I never cut it square. It gives off a different flicker of light when you do it that way. Make them about 1/4 of an inch apart in distance. Lay that right there. I want just a touch of flash right in my belly. 2 pieces, just so that if any fish is looking at my belly, I want it to be reflecting just a hint of light. Um, I can always pull it out if I'm in super clear water. You know, sometimes when I get around false albacore or bonito, they really dislike that. So I can just reach in there and pluck it out. Bucktail, pretty standard stuff. I want to make sure everybody knows the Bob Popovic's way of dealing with bucktail, which is he would say, come in here, grab just the tips, pull those out, preen away, and what you get are ones that are all the same length. That works great when I do hollow flies. I'm not doing a hollow fly, so I come in and I do more Clouser style. Grab about a pencil, maybe 2 pencils worth, depending upon the bulk of what you're trying to do. And as I pull up, I'm pulling my scissors down into that height. I want it cutting as close as I can. Any of these ones that are under an inch or two in length, get rid of. But all of these others that are in here that are short, like these right here, see how there's those right there? For the most part, I tend to leave those in. The reason why is if I do this and roll that in there, I have a minnow shape already. If you start taking and doing what everybody else does, which is to start finger stacking this, which is grab the long ones and even those tips up a little bit. If I do that one more time, it will happen. I now have a paintbrush. I don't have any taper. I don't like that personally. I know Bob doesn't either. So we will leave in a whole bunch of those short guys, and then just to distribute those back around because I'm adding those short guys back to the bottom. We'll just spin it around. There, we've got a little bit more of a minnow shape now. Typically speaking, as with most Clousers, it should be 2.5 times the hook length, but that doesn't always have to be the case. If you look at this one, I was going down to fish in Birmingham, and I knew the bait fish I was imitating were 5-inch long. So I tied one 5 inches long. You know, I put a good size hook on there. That's a 1/0 hook, but I was going for 3 to 4 pound largemouth bass. I didn't need a hook bigger than that. So know that the 2.5 times rule is just that it's a guideline. It doesn't mean you have to do it. If you have any of the broken tips in there, the square ones, I try to get those out if I can, just because I don't think the fish care, but I have to sell most of my flies, so it matters to me. All right. So we come in, we pre-measure. We go, that's the right length. We come in and I cut square across there. All right. And that's what I wanted to do. Hold on. I wanted to use a very loud colored thread for you guys, so you'd be able to see this technique. I'm going to tie this with red thread real quick. Obviously, I would never fish a redhead. Well, I do sometimes, but I wouldn't use red for this normally. But what we do is we call it a gathering wrap. So I've just wrapped around that, and I'm going to pull it down and wrap over it. And that puts it right at 12 o'clock on the hook.
Hey, Alan,
Yes.
are gathering wraps and soft loops the same thing?
I'm not sure what a soft loop is, but I'll
Uh,
show that again so that everybody can see it because we have time and we have lots of bucktail. I want to show it. It's highlighted in Bob's book, Clouser's Flies, for his Clouser Minnow. He doesn't do it anymore when he ties live. You don't have to listen, but what I have found it does is it allows me to stack colors. If you look at this fly right here, notice it's 3 colors. It's white, yellow, blue, right? The yellow is stacked on the same place on both sides. When you don't use that technique, you have a tendency for it to roll one way or the other. So that's why he originally said to do it. And when he taught me how to tie a Clouser when I was 12 or 14, whatever it was, back then he was doing it. So Again, we cut square and do it on the side here again. And we wrap around that. And then we slide the bucktail down and pull straight down and break your thread.
Oh, you wrapped it. You wrapped around the material itself first.
Yes, you're
Uh,
gathering the material. Um, it was, I know it used to be used a lot for squirrel hair. The squirrel hair is notoriously slick. It was a technique, and I don't know if that's where Bob learned it or not, but I've seen a lot of old tires like Eric Leisure and people like that in their books would say to use it there. So again, we wrap around the material, 360, get down at 12 o'clock.
I've not seen that before. The soft loop is for Atlantic salmon time when you're trying to stack a married wing. Um,
Uh,
but that's different. That's directly on the shank itself.
okay.
I get it. It literally is its name. I understand. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Um, I can't tell you how often I use it on basically anytime I tie in bucktail, unless I'm doing a hollow fly, it has a gathering wrap because it allows me to place it. I can put it at 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock. It doesn't matter. I take the time of, if you think about your hook as a clock face, I can put it anywhere I want at that time.
Yeah, but it limits you if you wanted to, like if I was doing it with Rhea and later on I wanted to splay the Rhea along the shank, I wouldn't be able to do that. So it's really, I'm assuming this is really good if you want to keep that bunch together or that bundle together.
Correct. That being said, if I take my fingernail and smash this down,
Oh, you can. Okay. Yeah.
hidden still, or if I come in and pinch it back up.
Yeah. Cool.
So
Learn something new every day. That was my aha moment. Thank you.
I'm going to get you onto weed guards next, April.
Sounds good, especially down here.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who's up in the Kimberley, which I think you were just at. He guides up there. And I've been teaching him how to do it. He's loving it. It's like, oh, I don't lose my flies anymore. Like I know. All right, so we've got bucktail. So my ratio for all of my clousers every time until I get to bonefish sized ones, meaning ones this small, it's always 4 pieces of Flashabou and 3 pieces of Crystal Flash. I always want my Flashabou to be a touch longer than the Crystal Flash, and I want all of them to be different lengths. And then the next part is, if you guys can see here on there, the Crystal Flash is longer, but I want the Crystal Flash to be the entire length of the bucktail. So I get a flash tail of Flashabou. So I measure it, that's about the right length. And I just wrap it over the thread to double it up. Have you guys seen that technique before where you make a U and you can slide that U right to the front of the fly, wrap over it 3 or 4 times, and you've got all of that doubled over and locked in. I'll do that again. I might have done it too quick. But once you do it, you can't adjust it because you've put a crease in the material. So I take it, I wrap it over the thread, I pinch it. I missed one. And now I've got this U, and I can take that U and slide it wherever I want it to be. I want it at 12 o'clock, but towards the front of the fly. And then I've got 3 turns of thread wrapped back over it. So now these aren't going to pull out. And what I also like to do is I like to make sure I have a couple pieces of Crystal Flash, just 1 or 2, that literally are like halfway into the body is all. So this is another thing I learned from Lefty and Bob. They were very big proponents of having a few pieces of short Crystal Flash and Flashabou in their flies. And the reason why is they said, if you were to ever take a mirror like this and flash to try to get somebody to help you if you were lost, the light comes off the edge of the mirror. doesn't come off the center. So by having edges here in the middle, you're getting reflections in the middle of your fly. And I will say, even though I don't put a lot of flash in my flies tend to be brighter than people that have like 15 pieces of flash, but they're all at the same length because they don't get any flash in the middle, or they don't get a lot, I should say. So I'll do a different color here so you guys can see what happens. Uh, Something bright like orange here. So you guys can see what happens when you by using this gathering wrap, I can really stack the colors well. They put way too much off for bulk wise, so I gotta thin it out. But again, you guys can see I'm leaving in those shorter fibers like that so that I have the natural taper already started. And all I do is I literally just measure to, if you have to err on a side, err on your top being a touch short. You don't want it longer than the tail normally. A touch short is okay though. But again, I'll show you this. We come in, we wrap around this and then slide it down. Right. Now, this is important. I purposely chose bucktail from the wrong spot. I chose it from up here where it was really hollow. And the reason why I did that is I want you guys to see how it flares. We don't want that. If the texture of this, which this one, the texture is thin enough, it's fine enough that I can do it. If I take very loose wraps, very loose, I'm putting almost no thread pressure here, just wrapping back over it, I can lay that back down and get a minnow shape out of it. You guys see that? Then just I do a 2-turn whip finish followed by a 3 or 4 turn. I'm not too worried about that knot right there because we're going to do something else afterwards. But there, now I've got that minnow shape. If I have any crystal flash that's more than about 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch out the back, I'll trim it shorter. And then the other thing is I'll check that those 2 pieces on the bottom. I don't want them to be much longer than the fibers either. I'll have them be a bit shorter. I don't want flash coming out of the belly past the bucktail. So there, we've got that shape. Now, we're going to talk adhesives now. I want this fly to be waterproof. I'm going to fish it in the salt potentially. It's going to be highly durable for me, so I want it to last. So I'm actually going to use old-fashioned regular head cement, and I'm going to completely saturate this thing. That's my 7th drop, I think 8th drop, and it's just now finally pulling on the bottom to where I can get it. So now I've got that head fully saturated. If I was tying these, I would let this fly completely dry. That normally means overnight, but we're not going to do that because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a weed guard. Lefty liked to use metal wire. He liked 7-strand wire, and it works great. It's very strong. It doesn't deflect easily. And in his application, it worked. But I don't think he had seen how Dave did these weed guards with Mason. So we're going to do it Dave's way because I think it's better. Simplify Nano Silk in the 30 denier. They do have a 20 denier. I haven't tried yet. It's new. The 30 works well. We just get it started. Get it off your finger. And for this size fly, I already know either 16 or 20 pound, depending upon where I'm going to be fishing it. I'm never going to fish this particular fly with a red head and orange back and stuff, but be shaving the hook. But all we do is we cut a piece about 1.5 inches long. There's a natural arc to it. We want the arc going straight out and down and away from us. I've put about 3/16 of an inch inside my pliers. I'm going to squeeze a flat spot and pull that mono back and hold it for a good 5 or 10 seconds. And when I've done that right, I've put a foot on that weed guard. So that foot only needs to be as long as that tie-in area, which on this fly is roughly that long. So the reason why I want the fly to be dry is I'm going to use Zap-A-Gap. We're going to take and brush the thread for an inch and brush that foot. Come in, place that right at 12 o'clock. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to brush that thread for about 2 inches this time. Start at the front and work our way back over that. And then I'm going to be pulling hard enough to bend that hook that much. So I normally support the hook eye. I didn't mean to break that, but I did. But that is glued in. That glue sets that quick. The next part is the wheat guard only has to be long enough to protect this hook point. I'm going to pull all this stuff down and out of the way for people to be able to see. That means I only need it to be about that long. I want it just short of the hook point. If you look there, when I bend it down, it's just short by 0.5 millimeter. That's what I want. So pull that foot back up. One side of my scissor left a burr, and it's on the top on this one this time. The bottom side is smooth, so that burr would catch that little green slimy algae that's on a lot of our stuff. So we just come in, squeeze a little flat spot and roll it, and that little foot will help that not that it got rid of that burr, and it'll help it slide over grass and other things like that. So that's the Bendback. Now we'll tie one with the right colors so you guys can see that. Because I wanted you guys to see that gathering wrap. And it's hard to do that when I'm using white thread. You won't see it. The other thing I want you guys to do is after this, I'm going to do a Clouser version for you real quick. So that only takes me a second as well.
These would work really well for coho, for you guys, silver salmon. We fish a lot of those real sparse little flies.
And here's the thing, I just showed you guys a myriad of colors. There's if you can get bucktail in it, you can tie it in that color. It's whatever you can find will work. So if you know that they like, orange bellies and black backs or whatever, fine. If that's the right color combo, then fish it. And if they want red flash or whatever, you can do whatever the fish in your area want. It's a really, around here I sell them a lot for albacore. So we're imitating bay anchovies and spearing and lots of little fish. I actually think that this one right here at this size with the slight pink to it, when that gets into that brackish water for the snook and baby tarpon, I actually think they think it's a shrimp because it's kind of got the similar shape with that pink color to it. Yeah, I have no idea what this color looks like, but they sure do love it. Oh, I remember the name. This is called the Prince of Tides. When Flip Palette created it, it was called the Prince of Tides. But it's the same as Bob Clouser's baby smallmouth, basically. So we'll put in our single piece of pearl flashaboo for the belly. Again, it's the same thing. I wrap it around the thread, create this U, just wrap over it once or twice on the belly, then I come back up to the front. I try to make sure that each piece is on each side of the hook. Now, when I tie these for myself, at every step of the way, I hit this whole thing with head cement, so that way it doesn't take 6 or 8 like it did at the end to get that fully saturated. So going back to the bucktail again, grab what you think is enough, pull it tight and pull up as you're pulling under that hide so that way you get all of it. You're not leaving a quarter of an inch stub behind. With a couple of broken tips. You can see I leave these shorter ones in here. If you look, there's ones there that are going to be an inch or so long. But that gives me that nice taper into that fly. Cut it square. Bring it up. So I'm going to do that gathering wrap. Just placing that cut edge to be right behind the hook eye. I don't know if we talked about Crystal Flash before, but there's lots of different companies that make it. Um, they're the original is called Flashaboo Accent from Hedron Incorporated, which was a Larry Dahlberg company for a long, long, long time. In fact, I found a letter about Flashaboo when I was going through Dave's stuff after his passing. He's the one who named Flashaboo for Larry. Larry sent him the stuff and said, "Hey, this stuff's really great. I think I should bring it to market." Dave, tied with it. Said, "My gosh, that stuff has so much flash, but it has the action of Marabou. Why don't we call it Flashaboo?" There's a letter he wrote. He had developed a fly called the Electric Leech that Umpqua used to sell back in the 90s and early 2000s. And in that box of them, I found the letter that he wrote about the origin of that. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing that he touched on another thing that we all use. So I've got that Flashaboo and Crystal Flash all at different lengths again. That's the right length there. Wrap it around the thread. Right on the top. Lay it down. Come in and cut a couple of these guys really short, less than halfway through the body. Just 2 or 3. I don't want 2 at the same length anywhere if I can avoid it, and I normally can. So this time I'm going to show you guys how we add a bleeding head to these. So this right here doesn't look like much red, but when this gets wet, the optical illusion that happens is it looks like the head is bleeding. The whole fly just has like a red head to it. If you've ever seen any of the plug fishermen, they quite often will fish white lures with a red head. This is kind of my play on that, because I like snook fishing a lot and they like white with red heads. Whether it's a walk the dog lure or a Rapala style, they like that. So I started figuring out, it's in Bob's book about doing a redhead as well, but doesn't do it much in shows anymore. It never really took off, and it's a shame. It worked really well for me in the Amazon last year. Same thing, gathering wrap.
How many piranhas did you catch on it?
Um, here's what I learned. If I had a deceiver or a flapper tail out the back, the piranhas liked it more than clousers.
Oh, okay.
Um, I had I had tremendous luck fishing clousers in this bright color combo. The chartreuse yellow, the fluorescent green, like it was with the gold flash. I mean, white worked, the Prince of Tides worked a little bit. The white with red head worked, the yellow, but like when I went to the yellow, like the fluorescent yellow, that was the key. So one thing I want to point out real quick, if you guys look right now, you can see that my 2 bunches have like a very distinctive line there. It's because I haven't wrapped back enough, and I'm purposely haven't. I want to show you guys just by me doing 1, 2. There we go. So it's 3 turns. So 1, 2, in 3 turns, I just changed the entire shape of that fly. Did you guys see the bucktail lay down each time? Do it again. So I've got this big broad profile, and one, two, and I just laid all of that bucktail down. I wasn't doing terribly tight wraps, but it did lay it down. And I forgot to do it before, so I'm going to put some head cement in there. Is this fly in this color I will fish. White with a red head is always a winner. And this is the nice thing about the red bucktail. I do not care how poor quality it is, and I don't care, relatively speaking, as long as it has a little bit of kink to it or crinkle, that's fine. I don't want this stuff up here. If you look at how straight those tips are, that's not ideal. Down here, we've got a little bit of crinkle to it. That's kind of what I want. And I need literally like 20 fibers, like half a matchstick is all I normally take. See all of those? Get rid of the super short ones. And then I come in and I cut like an inch out of the back. Take a little hair stacker. And I found that going backwards into the hair stacker makes it easier. Trying to get the tips of bucktail in a hair stacker, not easy. But I can always push the butts up the wrong side. Stack those tips just a little bit. They normally stack pretty quickly and easily. If you've got one or two errant ones, just pluck them out. It's a bit too many. And then here's the next part. The red only needs to go to the hook point. So that's all the longer it needs to be, is that right there. Right there's the hook point. So come in, transfer that measurement, trim it square, and do the exact same thing. I'm going to do a gathering wrap. And that allows me to keep that right at 12 o'clock. So I know we started talking about the head cement. The reason why I use it is head cement doesn't have much of a bonding property. It's not going to hold that hair together. But what it will do is it's a very good waterproofing agent. So it's going to seal those thread wraps. It's going to seal that so that it's not going to rot from the inside. All right. We're going to go and add the weed guard to this again. So I just start with this 30 denier nano silk. Just a couple of turns to get it started. I know I'm going to be using this for different fish. So I'm going to go down to a 16-pound weed guard. You can do anywhere from 16 to 20 on these flies. And when I go down to the bonefish size ones, I'll use 14 and 12-pound even. The weed guard only has to be as strong as the fly is heavy. So, when I have no weight or really small lead eyes, I need a lighter weed guard. Whereas when I go to lead eyes like this size, or when I go up to ones that are mediums, I might need to go up to even a solid 20-pound test on those. In this technique for the weed guards, you can add it to any fly. Brush the thread for an inch, brush the foot, place it exactly where you want it, and wrap. Check and make sure that it's in line with the hook. If you're doing a single, if you're doing two, you do a V at like 1 o'clock and 11 o'clock. On this fly, I don't normally do two. I haven't found that I need to. Go back to the front and just wrap back again. Now, there's not a lot of thread holding that weed guard on, but we don't need it to stay on because the next step of this is we would paint this hook, with whatever eyes we wanted. I typically do red with a black dot, but if that's not your style, if you want yellow or if you want orange or whatever you want, you can have a little bit of artistic flair there. I did not cut that short enough. There. So there, now I've got the weed guard. So to paint I just used my red paint. I save all of my lead ice containers, so I have pieces of paper I can use. I can use normally about half for each one. And then I have the Ziploc bags as well. I separate them so I can use them. Then I use cadmium. I use this Liquitex soft body acrylic. I used to use um, Tester's enamel. And what I found with that was, and I'll show you because I know this fly was tied with it. If you look at this eye, that eye is fluorescent. So the Tester's enamel was a fluorescent paint, come to find out. I'm sure that meant it was one of the reasons why it smelled so great. Um, but so to add that fluorescent, because this doesn't have any, I start with just a little bit of the red. And then I'll show you what I do. I actually bought fluorescent red. But the problem with this fluorescent red is it almost looks orange. So I only need a little bit of it in the blend to get the fluorescent color. So I've now got those two on there together. You can see there's the fluorescent and the regular red. And I just I have a little round tipped vodka in here. I just blend it together real quick. It doesn't take long. But the most important tool you'll need for these are these little dowels. This is a quarter or 3/16 inch dowel. These are 5/16. I have a whole bunch of different sizes. And I just put them into a pencil sharpener. So I have different size diameter dots. So for this one, I know that it's this size eye. All I do is the first dab covers the bottom. I want to, make sure it's even. I get a second dab. And there are my two dots. I'll wait for that paint to dry. Then I'll do a black coat over the top of it, right? It's really, painting is something we all learned in kindergarten. We don't have to watch that paint literally dry. But we're now I want to show you guys how I do a Bendback clouser. Because I think it's the most effective version of the fly. I don't fish regular clousers anymore. And I want you guys to see how I do it. So with my lead eyes, I don't want them to spin. So I'm going to lightly abrade the hook, but only on that first, 3/16 or so that I bent. All right, I bent. I don't want to go past that. I just want to scratch that first part. Then I come in. I coat that area with some Zap-A-Gap. Then I'm going to come through. I'm going to lay a layer of thread right through that zap. I know I have too much zap there. I can see it puddling, so I'm going to pull it off with a little paper towel. So what I have done is I have laid a layer of thread there that is impossible for it to actually spin. It is as solid can be, right? It's bonded to that scratch tuck. Now we're going to take some lead eyes. I typically use the Wapsies red ones. I will say Hairline makes a good product. Their paint doesn't dissolve with super glue, which means my brush will get pink over time if I'm doing a lot of lead eyes. But the Hairline lead eyes aren't as heavy as the Wapsies for the same diameter. So I tend to stick with the Wapsies. At least that's what I have found. So we've got to turn the hook upside down because we want the lead eyes on the bottom. So I do 3 turns in one direction, then I turn the eye and I do 3 turns the other way. And then I do my 3 helicopters, which are under the eyes but above the hook shank. All right. And then I check and make sure those eyes are perpendicular to the hook, and then also make sure that they're perpendicular to the hook point, which means I have to turn my head and look at the hook eye from here. And they are. So the next thing I do is I put a big drop of Zap-A-Gap there, and I come and I brush through on this side as well. And now I do that 3 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, then my 3 helicopters. So I've got 9 turns in every direction. And then I check and make sure that it still looks damp. It doesn't. So I'm going to add a touch of Zap-A-Gap to make sure that that whole area is damp. And a little too much there. And then I get the thread to just in front of the eyes. Okay. So this time we'll do more traditionally a white with maybe a different colored back to it. So you guys can see how I color mine as well. There, I've got that nice minnow taper to that with all the short ones in there. Not all of them, I've taken some out, but I want that taper. Trim it nice and square and bring it up. Do that gathering wrap, pull it right down to 12 o'clock. Have a nice neat head. And if I've done that right, I shouldn't have much flare to it, right? All right, so let's see. I'll do a second color here. I'll do pale blue. Another great color, especially for pelagic ocean fish. I like a white with a blue back to it, but it's you got to have this real sky blue or a Tar Heel blue. And this is one of my favorite ones I have. It's almost a 7-inch fiber. It's almost a blasphemy to use it for a clouser, but it's what I got. It makes a very pretty fly. All right. So we've got the blue. I want to show you guys how I do my colors for my flash when I change for my backs. So I want to have a complementary color in there. So this is smolt blue crystal flash. I'm going to put 1 piece of that in there. This is their pale blue flashaboo. I'm going to do 2 pieces of that. So I do 2 pieces of the colored flashaboo to match the body, to match that back, and 1 piece of the belly, or 1 piece of the crystal flash. And then I still stick with my pearl for the other 2 of the crystal flash. And I still stick with the pearl flashaboo for the other 2 as well, because it's still 4 and 3. Even when my clouds are half and halves, I do 4 and 3. I have started playing with adding a single piece of micro lateral scale to some of my flies. It's extremely bright, so I'm not in love with it yet, but I've had a couple of people tell me they really like how lateral scale adds, a lot of flash to their flies. So I'm trying it and seeing if I can learn to like it, live with it. So I've got a couple of different lengths here, right? There we go. Wrap it around the thread, right at 12 o'clock. Couple of layers of thread. Then cut a couple of these really short. go. And then we come in with our wing. I will tell you that when Bob does them, he likes his wings to be about twice the bulk density of his bellies. I'm not quite that heavy with mine. I like mine to be, and most of the time, if I can, I like my bellies to be 2/3 of the fly. Um, but that's because I know that if you look at most bait fish, only the top 10% normally has much color on it. But you can't get the flash in the middle when you do that. So then I'll have to do it as a 3-color fly like this. And I'll still put the flash after the second color, or maybe I put it after the first color. It depends. But the bulk density thing is you make the fly what you think is right for your fish and what you're trying to imitate, whatever the bait fish actually is. Um, Dave Whitlock would tie these with craft fur, and he would imitate dace. He would imitate chubs and suckers with them. He would get really accurate with his imitations. He was also a big fan of fire tiger as well. So he had a lot of fire tiger ones. So, and we'll do that gathering wrap again. Do the weed guard here real quick. And I want to show you guys how to do the resin head is the next thing. So this one, we're going to go back to a 20-pound weed guard. Just because I've got those lead eyes there. Just to show that process one more time. The mono comes straight out of the pliers, angling away from us. Squeeze a flat spot, pull it back, hold it for about a 5 count. And that should bend a foot in there. That foot only needs to be as long as our tie-in spot, which on this one is even less than that. Brush the thread for half an inch or so, brush that foot. You have about 5 to 10 seconds to adjust that before that glue starts to set. And start at the hook eye again. Wrap back. Get one more turn of wet. Just hold it tight. And by holding it tight and pulling it, see that's hard I'm pulling. That actually sets the glue. And then if you guys notice, I'm always cutting my mono back here with the back of my scissors so that I don't spring them open. I can get 8 or 9 months out of these scissors. And that's the first scissor in my life I've ever been able to do that with. So I'm quite pleased with that. So next we're going to do some resin work. Use whatever resin you like that's clear. I like Tough Fly. It's the clearest of them all, and it's very hard, and it has a really good bond. Some of the other ones I have found, after I put them on, I can take my fingernail and just flick it off. So I don't like that. And I also know that this is the clearest of them all because there are some police agencies that use it to encapsulate fibers from crime scenes. They can slice it and use it and read it under microscopes. So I go around this eyeball first on both sides to protect the paint on the eye and to give me something to hold on to here as well. So it's not fully cured, but it's not going to drip anymore. Next thing I'm going to do is just go over all of the thread wraps. Same thing, just getting a base coat on. That's the other thing I like about the Tough Fly. It does dry with a tackiness. That tackiness is what the next layer is actually designed to bond to. Um, Whereas a lot of the other ones, if you dry them fully cure them and try to add more to them, they won't stick to each other very well. So I'm going to protect my eyes here real quick. So I've started building that wedge shape, but I don't quite have it there. I always say it's somewhere between a wedge and like a heart shape. So I have my vise on free swing here, right? I hold it at 90 degrees and I'm going to just take and put a drop right there. And then I hold it upside down for a second and hit it with the light. And if I've done that right, I filled in that wedge right there on the far side. I'm going to do it again on this other side here. A touch more on this side just to make it symmetrical. That doesn't really matter, but it matters to me because again, I self-wise. People complain if I don't. And then there is a cavity between the two, the eyes here. So I just take and I put a drop right here. And it'll kind of drip down in and fill in a little bit. And I hit it. So now it's not going to droop anymore. And this is where I'm going to take it and I'm just going to fully cure it for, I don't know. I know a few spots that I always never hit well, which is behind the back of the eyes. All right. And like I said, it has a tackiness to it. If you don't care about that, you can just wipe it with rubbing alcohol with a little piece of paper towel and you'll get rid of that tackiness right away. It will have a haze to it. Put that fly in the water, it's gin clear, the haze is gone. I can't sell that. I've tried. So Tough Fly makes this thing they call top coat. It's not Sally Hansen's because Sally Hansen's will brown over time. But it's just it's not a nail polish, but it smells like one. I just brush it on and it takes about a minute or so to dry. Dries clear and it bonds to that Tough Fly resin. It never flakes off. I've never had it flake off. And it's gin clear when it's done here in about another minute and a half. But I want to trim one of these is coming out about an inch and a half past the bottom, the tail. So I'm going to trim that shorter. Here's another one, a little too long. So you can do lead eyes, bead chain, the little nickel plated eyes like this one. You can do brass beads, or brass cones, tungsten beads. You can do whatever weight you need to get it fine tuned in. On bonefish flies, it's quite often bead chain, right? Or permanent flies. If permanent flies are almost always lead eyes, but like bonefish and so a bumphead parrotfish, bumpies, I will use a lot of bead chain for when I send them over to the Seychelles. There, that is already tacked dry to the finger. And I've got that wedge shaped head with the resin. If I'm just doing this, it's just a round head with the resin, right? There's nothing fancy. It's just evenly coat it, hit it, cure it. It's pretty simple to do a little round head. But I wanted to show you guys how to do that wedge head. And this has a really great, let me pull it out and give it a lick. You can see it's got a really nice minnow shape. If you have one errant one like that guy, there's no reason you can't come in and trim them out. But it has a really nice minnow shape to it. You can do whatever color your fishery requires. Same with flash. Like I said, I was trying to imitate a bait fish I saw in Birmingham, Alabama that was pale blue with a little bit of yellow and a white belly to it. So that's what this one was. It's kind of a play on Charlie Waterman's Silver Outcast, right? That was one of his favorite colors. But Anybody have any questions? Does anybody want to see anything else, how to bend the hook? Or anything else?
What an unsuspecting fly. There's so much thought that's gone into it. And I've just always thought you took a bunch of material and threw it on.
Yeah. Well, and listen, by all means you can, but I know I keep mentioning Lefty and Bob, but I grew up near those guys, and he was a very well-traveled angler, right? And he's written in many of his books that there's only about, like in saltwater, there's only about 7 or 8 flies you need. You can go anywhere in the world and catch fish on them. And I have proven that. Um, you know, he liked a gold ribbed hares when I went to New Zealand. That was my number one nymph. They aren't terribly particular fish. They're just spooky, but they're not difficult like to get to eat to fly. You just gotta stalk them well and not scare them. Saltwater, Clouser minnows work really well for me in Brazil. I've used them in Portugal. I've used them in the UK. I've used them in Chile. In fact, in Chile, my number one streamer was about this size with a sandy tan back and a little and mostly pearl flash. I had one piece of gold flash in it. So it was white with a tan back. Number one trout streamer I've used down there by far. Um,
Alan, this is Kevin in Oklahoma City. Was that a Gamakatsu hook you're using?
It is. I use this hook, the SL11 3H. This was a 4 today. I can tie it all the way up into a 1/0, which when I show you the 1/0, that is a beefy hook. Come to find out, fly fishing isn't really that important to any hook manufacturer. These are bait hooks that they've repurposed into fly hooks. So I can order the bait hook version or this, but the bait hook version comes in either 1,000 packs or like pre-snelled. So I don't need 1,000 hooks of one size very often. But this 1/0 hook is what I used for Arapaima and for peacocks. And I've sent it down for people to use for barramundi. And I want to show you the difference in that. This 1/0 hook is quite beefy compared to, listen, I've landed like 20-pound redfish on this one right here. Look at the difference in just the diameter of the wire. This 1/0 is quite beefy. Really big wire, big eye. I don't like it for clousers. Normally, I think it's too much unless I need, a fit, unless it's going for really big fish. So I'll use the 6 like the 6 I use for bonefish and crappie, because I fish for crappie a lot. But the 2, this is the standard permit hook, and like a lot of people like this size and this strength of hook for permit. And if you look between the 2 and the 4, there's not much difference in the hook. It's just the wire's quite a bit stronger. That's the main difference. So I'll use that 2 a lot, and then the 4 a lot. I have the 1 as well. I don't use it very often. It's kind of that weird size. I don't think it has enough gap to it. Because it immediately goes up to like this kind of bulky hook, but there's not a lot of gap. And I'll show you the difference between the 1 and the 2. I'm just not there's not a lot of gain there by going up. You're just getting stronger metal. I have this issue with a lot of the hooks that I work with is I can't go just up one size because they don't hold their properties well. Like the B10S is that way. I like the B10S a little. It's not my favorite hook. But like here's the 4, and let me get the 1 off. So the 1/0 B10S, for a lot of fish, this hook will do pretty well. It's wicked sharp. I will say that is the one thing with this hook. It's one of the sharpest hooks I've ever used. And I love the Stinger hook. I love that O'Shaughnessy bend. Um, I really think that that's one of the better bends. It's that or a Model Perfect round for me are my two favorites. Um, really sharp hook point. I mean, right away it's into my nail. That's the one I, but if I go down to the one, it's not that much difference in size, but the metal is quite a bit weaker. And then if I go down to like the four, I have dry hooks that are stronger metal than that. And here's the other reason why I really dislike that. For a one-aught, I shouldn't be able to do that. The B10S isn't very strong. So like I would never use it for tarpon or for that part, any saltwater fly. It's just not strong enough. And I know a lot of people that try to spin deer hair bugs on them and they break the hook while they're spinning deer hair, trying to pack deer hair on it. So for me, I don't use a lot of them.
Thank you. That was good info.
Yeah, but you can use, like I said, Mustad or the Daiichi 2546, the old stainless steel hook that they make, and then the Mustad 3407. They're perfectly fine, hooks. They're stainless, so if you look at them just right, they're going to dull. So you just make sure you have hook files with you when you go fishing, and you continually touch that hook point up with those stainless hooks. They really go dull very quickly. And a dull hook point is how you break a hook. Um, let me, I, this is one of the things Dave taught me. I was having trouble. I hadn't moved over to this hook um, at that point, and I was trying to figure out why. I was using a 2546 in a one-aught, and they were breaking off on like 6-pound tarpon. A tarpon that was 25 inches long. Not a big fish, but I was breaking them on the hook set. It wasn't the fight. It was I would strip set into them. I'd feel something, and then I wasn't getting hooked up, and I'd bring my fly in, and it would have broke right there. It always broke either right here or right there. And at first I was like, oh, maybe I'm crimping into my jaws too tight. So I started tying with it where it would wobble like this. That didn't, it was still breaking here or here. And then I found out from Dave, the reason why it breaks there is when a fish's mouth comes up and hits that hook point like this, this is the part of the hook that has to take that flex. The straight shank isn't going to break, but all of the force is on the hook point. So the bend is what's going to break. It's not going to, on the hook set, it doesn't bend to open like this, right? Let me do it. It's not going to bend to open like that. What it's going to do is it's going to break it because the impact is so strong with that hook set. I can't use that hook. I got to throw it away. Yeah, let me show you guys that again so you can see it. When that hook set's going in like this, it's that pressure at the hook point that flexes the bend, and that's what pops that bend open. And if it's a dull enough hook point, it'll break. If it's kind of sharp, it'll finally penetrate after a while, but you'll get that bent open hook bend. And once he told me that was what my issue was, I started taking a file with me out on the boat, which I used to do, and I'd gotten away from it. And I was touching them up after every fish, and I stopped bending the hooks open. But then every time I threw it into a tree or it hit a oyster bar or whatever, like the hook point was dulling, and I was sharpening the hook so much, I was like, this is taking an hour out of my day on an 8-hour day of touching that hook point up. So I found another hook that I could use that was sharp enough, and that's what these Gamakatsus are. They're wicked sharp out of the box. There, that's all the little bend it is. It's just a little bit. So, any other questions?
Sorry, Alan.
No, it's okay.
The plastic cone is starting to control my office here. As you can hear, sorry. That was excellent. Does anyone else have any questions before we wrap this up?
I just want to make sure Listen, I tried other monofilaments with the weed guards. It's got to be Mason, and it's got to be their hard type nylon. I tried Chameleon, I tried Berkeley Big Game, I tried a bunch of other stuff that I thought was going to be cheaper and easier to use. It has a memory to it that's really important to use. The other ones just after an hour of fishing, they're just flat.
No, this is super helpful as always. I just can't, I am always so impressed by how much thought goes into every step and every material. It really feels like science. Fly tying with you is like science. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I try. The thing I'm trying to figure out how to add next are gills. I've been playing around with them, but I don't have them mastered just yet.
Ooh, you'll have to keep us posted when I mean, it's never mastered, but when you get close, let us know.
Yeah, I will. I will. I'm doing some prototypes this year, and it'll take me 2 or 3 years of because I'm quite thorough, as you can tell.
Yes, I love it. It's my favorite part. Okay, well, it's great to see all of you. It's been a while. I've been on the road, so I haven't been as active as usual, but I'm back in the office and really, really great to see all of you. Some new faces too. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up, Alan, and we'll see you again soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.